Here we have our H+ Sport logo with some basic materials applied. Let's open up one of them and we can see that we've just got the color channel enabled and a color set. So to make this a reflective or shiny material, we need to enable the reflectance channel. We'll add a Beckman layer and you can see that it's 100% reflective, and so we're not actually seeing a whole lot. What's new in R18 is the OpenGL reflections preview. So when we actually start to, if we turn off the interactive render region for a moment, so Alt R, you can actually see those reflections, and we have this sort of default environment in the scene, and that's what's being picked up. It's exactly this image. So what we need to do, if we turn on the interactive render region again, need to make sure we can bring back some of that color channel. And how could we do this? Well, we can bring down the strength. That's one way, and we'll still get some reflections picked up. You can see there. We can increase it back and then use the Fresnel options. So let's choose, if we're to create something like a metal, we probably want to choose a conductor. And the presets are, as you'd expect, different types of metals and things like that, things that conduct. And now we have, what I'd like to do is maybe change to the dielectric ones. And this gives us a completely different look, more kind of liquids and plastics and glass, things like that. We can choose one of the presets or use the slider or the arrow controls to key in our own index of refraction. And that's just how the light moves through the medium that we're trying to create. And so what we need to do is start setting up some other reflections, because with the Fresnel on, the greater the angle at which you view the surface, that's where you'll see more reflections. So we will come around, see more reflective surface. Other materials are looking a bit plain, so we'll just add some reflectance to those as well. In the same way, turning on the reflectance channel, adding a Beckman layer, we'll come down and we'll just add a bit of Fresnel to it. And you can see now, close this down, start moving around, that we are indeed getting some reflections. And it's because we have these objects in the scene that they're reflecting against each other. If you come around here, you can see that the H is being reflected here. Now we can also change some of the settings here to get a different specular highlight. And if you increase the roughness level, you can see now that we're getting a blurry reflection. You can see it right here on the edge here, but it's a bit kind of crispy. And I want to point out something else as well. We've got quite a few lights in the scene. This is starting to look way more reflective now as well because of the specular reflection, that specular highlight. So we were looking at the blurry reflection here, and what we can do is, because it's looking a bit grainy, we can come down to the sampling, and this is where you can control that grain. So if we increase the sampling, subdivisions here, it's going to take its time. You can see the progress down here. Whereas before we were getting quite snappy feedback, now it's taking its time, but the result is a much smoother and much nicer looking reflection. So I'll just take those sampling subdivisions down a bit just so we can preview a bit faster. And we'll just come around to a different angle and just see what we've got here. It's a completely different look based on the lighting, and that contributes to the environment. And the environment of the scene is so important to creating really nice looking reflections. So next we're going to look at creating reflective objects.